Listen to me, Muna. I have thought of a plan, a very good one.
It's time. Make sure you play your part well when the time comes.
Get out of my house before I pour hot water on you!
Whispered through the banyan leaves, 1,000 lives in every breeze. Drums that pulse, they softly tease. Time folds the stories we. Echoes rise, they call us near. Through shadowed past, the path is clear. Pleasant tales, the heart can hear. A world reborn in every tear.
Junseo kissed Muna, barely giving her time to catch her breath. He lifted her, took her towards the bed, and placed her on it. Muna's heart was beating really fast, but she was surprised at Junseo's behavior. He seemed too much in a hurry, and this was in contrast to his behavior during the times they had almost done the deed. She tried to justify his behavior. Perhaps he had held himself back for too long, which was why he was so eager. Despite telling herself this, Muna's countenance began to change. Junseo saw the look on her face and forced himself to stop. While breathing heavily, he stroked her cheeks and asked, "What's wrong?" Muna managed a smile. "Nothing. I'm just wondering why you are in such a hurry." "I'm sorry, Muna. I also don't understand what is going on with me, but I can't lie to myself anymore. I'm in love with you, Muna. I love you so much." Muna looked into Junseo's eyes and became emotional. Tears threatened to seep out of the corners of her eyes, but she knew that it wasn't the time for it. She cupped Junseo's face with her hands. "I love you so much, Junseo, and I've wanted to tell you this for a while. My husband, please make me yours." Afterward, they consummated their marriage. When their passion was spent, both Muna and Junseo fell into a deep sleep. Muna, from exhaustion, and Junseo from the effects of the substance which Minji had intended for Muna. Minji arrived at Junseo's house and knocked on his door. After knocking for a while, she looked around and realized that Junseo's car was not parked anywhere around. She had been too anxious when she drove, and which was why she missed it. Her phone rang, and she thought that Junseo was finally returning her calls. When she looked at her screen, however, she realized it was Minyu. She was tempted to take out her frustration on him, but held herself back. Minyu said impatiently, "I can't find Muna and I'm really worried. What if she ended up in bed with another guy after taking the spiked drink?" Minji thought about it and realized that it was a serious problem. "Hold on, I'm coming right away," she said. She quickly got into her car and drove back to the bar. Normally, she wouldn't be bothered by the fact that Muna ended up with a different man, but if Muna insisted that she was drugged, Junseo would believe her because he was convinced that she was a decent girl. It was a different ball game when it came to Minho. Junseo believed that Muna was in love with Minyu. He was her first love after all, so if Junseo caught the both of them in bed, he would never believe that Muna was innocent no matter how hard she tried to explain herself. All she needed to do was to get the both of them in bed together and allow Junseo to catch them in the act. Although nothing was going her way, she was going to make everything work out, no matter what. But why wasn't Junseo home? Could it be that he had gone to search for Muna? Could he have called her and learned of her whereabouts? Minji badly hoped that it wasn't the case because it would badly affect her plans. She realized that what she was worried about had come to pass when she arrived at the parking lot and saw Junseo's car. No, this was not happening. She quickly met with Minho and told him that Junseo was already at the bar and could be with Muna at the moment. Minho stared at Minji with a worried expression. "But you told me that you had driven a wedge between their relationship, so how could they be together right now?" "Do not worry, the manager of this place is my very good friend," Minji assured him. "Even if Junseo and Muna are together right now, I have a backup plan. We will surely succeed, Minyu, you have my word." Both Minji and Minyu met the manager. He furrowed his brows when he saw Minji's sad expression. "Haven't I done everything according to your plans? Why do you look sad when you should be happy?" Minji shook her head. "Things haven't turned out the way I wanted. The girl has disappeared and I don't know where she has gone to. Please let me see your CCTV footage." The manager led the both of them into a room and rewound the video footage to when Muna had just been served the glass of wine. They all watched quietly and saw how Junseo ended up drinking the spiked wine and taking Muna to the bedroom. Minyu balled his fist and angrily punched it into the wall. He knew what was in that glass, and with the way Muna and Junseo had been kissing, he knew what had gone down inside the bedroom. "That should have been me," he said out loud. "Calm down," Minji comforted. "I told you that I already have a backup plan, for now. Let's be grateful that Muna ended up with Junseo and not some random guy. It's also a good thing that Junseo was the one who drank the wine. It makes everything so much easier." "I don't see what you are getting at," Minho replied sadly. Minji took Minyu to the side and whispered what she had in mind while he stared at her in surprise. He finally realized that Minji was really sly and evil. It was a good thing that they weren't on opposing teams because he wouldn't have been able to match up to her schemes. As he listened to her plans, he also came up with a plan of his own. He didn't share it with Minji because he didn't trust her. She was too sinister for his liking, and he felt relieved that if everything went according to the plans they have each made, Muna would never have to deal with her again. The manager watched them from a distance and felt guilty. He knew that what they were about to do was very wrong, but he needed to make Minji happy because his happiness depended on that. He had been chasing Minji's cousin for months because he was madly in love with her, but she never gave him the time of day. Now, she had agreed to give him a chance if he did Minji's bidding, so he believed that he didn't have any other choice. He handed another key card to Minji, which would enable her to open the room where Junseo and Muna currently were. Minji also asked that the room next to Muna's room be given to her. When she had gotten everything she needed, she made Minyu wait for her while she went out and bought all the things she needed. She didn't know if Muna was awake, but she knew that Junseo wouldn't be because the aphrodisiac was meant to make whoever took it to fall asleep after a few hours. She opened the door as quietly as possible and peeped in. When she saw that Muna was deeply asleep, she entered the room quietly and stared at the both of them. Minyu came in behind her and was shocked to see both Muna and Junseo naked. He became angry at himself. Muna had not done anything with Junseo before today. If he had arrived earlier, that would have been him. Minji quickly did what she wanted in the room and dragged Minyu outside. As they closed the door, Muna opened her eyes. She felt really exhausted, but she was sure that she heard a noise. She was about to get up from the bed, but turned and saw Junseo naked. She blushed and covered him with a quilt. She stared at him with eyes full of love and admired his brows, which were shaped like the crescent moon. As she unknowingly inhaled the substance Minji has kept in the room, she fell back on the bed and lost consciousness. Minji saw that Minyu was fuming in anger and held herself back from laughing at him. "What a loser," she said inwardly. All the years he dated Muna, he couldn't get in between her legs, and now he was fuming. If it weren't for her, he would never again even get the chance to hold Muna, so he should just count himself lucky and not ruin her plans. She didn't tell him this, though, because she knew that he was very important to her at the moment. She kept checking her time as they waited in front of the door. When 30 minutes had passed, she smiled at Minho and said, "It's time. Make sure you play your part well when the time comes." Junseo opened his eyes and yawned. He noticed that he was in an unfamiliar bed and realized he had gotten laid. He looked beside him and saw Minji sleeping soundly. He opened the sheets and saw that she was naked as well. He tried to recall how he ended up in a strange bed with Minji, but the last thing he remembered was leaving his house in the morning for work. Where was he, and what could have made him spend the night with Minji? Was Muna back home waiting for him? He tapped Minji on her arm repeatedly. "Wake up, Minji, and tell me what's going on." Minji stretched her body and opened her eyes. She smiled sweetly at Junseo. "Good morning, handsome, and thank you so much for last night. It was steamy just like the first time we made love." "What the fuck are you talking about?" Junseo asked angrily. "And why can't I remember how I ended up in bed with you?" Minji wore a serious expression on her face as she replied. I'm so sorry, Junseo. Last night you caught Muna and Minyu in bed together. You were so angry that you had so much to drink. After that, you called me on the phone and said that you needed me. I ran as fast as I could and came to you because no matter what has happened, I still love you. Junseo got up from the bed and began to put on his clothes. Nonsense. If Muna wanted to have sex with Minyu, she would have done so a long time ago, so what the hell are you talking about? Let me call her right now. Minji quickly got off the bed as well and picked up her clothes. Hold on, Junseo. I know it's hard to believe, but we both saw them last night. You even booked a room beside theirs because of how angry you were. Junseo stared at Minji in surprise. What? Minji put on the last piece of clothing and said, I know it's hard for you to believe it, which is why you are doubting me. You can't remember because you had too much to drink last night, but come with me, and I will show you the truth right now. After speaking, Minji walked towards their bedroom door and opened it while Junseo followed behind her. Muna had a dream. In it, Junseo confessed his love for her, and they consummated their marriage. Her eyes flung open as she recalled that it wasn't a dream. Junseo had indeed made love to her last night, and he had confessed his feelings for her. She turned happily to stare at him, but was surprised to see Minyu sleeping beside her. Realizing she was naked, she quickly wrapped the sheets around her body and tapped Minho on his chest, urging him to wake up. The evidence of her innocence, which she had willingly given up to Junseo last night, was right in front of her. Her decision had been based on love, and she had her wits about her. She knew for a fact that Junseo was the man she spent the night with, so what was Minyu doing in her bed? Minho stretched his body and opened his eyes. When he saw Muna, he sat up immediately and stared at her in surprise. Looking at the blood in front of her, he asked, Did we have? No, Muna quickly cut him. Last night, Junseo and I had sex. I know this for a fact because my memory is intact, so what are you doing in my bed, and how did you get in here? Minyu was about to speak when the door was pushed open. He quickly covered himself with the sheets while Muna looked at him in surprise. She didn't feel like she had done anything wrong, so she did not understand why she had to be afraid. The only thing she needed to do was figure out how Minyu got into her room, and that wasn't going to be a problem. All she had to do was ask the management for the CCTV footage. When Minji took out a keycard from her bag and unlocked the door, she opened the door a little bit and stood by the side so that Muna would not be able to see her while gesturing for Junseo to go inside. Junseo was just about to ask Minji how she came to have the key card to the room that was supposedly Muna's, but then he saw Muna through the little opening. She was trying to properly cover herself with the bedsheets. Was she naked? He pushed open the door at once, and Minyu immediately went under the sheets. Minji took advantage of the opportunity and sneaked out. She knew that if Muna saw her, she would immediately realize that everything was planned by her. Muna stared at Junseo in confusion. She could not understand what was going on. Junseo should be explaining how he disappeared from the room and Minho appeared, but he looked very angry and was staring at her in disgust. Come out of the sheets, he barked at Minho. Muna frankly could not understand why Minho felt the need to hide under the sheets. It was lame and pathetic and gave off the idea that they had done something wrong when it wasn't the case. Minyu slowly came out from under the sheets, and Junseo scoffed in disbelief. He stared at the blood on the sheets around Muna's thighs and knew that she had lost her virginity. He recalled how she had told him that she had never done it with Minho. Was she now so desperate for sex that she crawled back to Minho because he did not give her the attention she craved? He felt very upset, but tried to control his anger because he didn't want to do anything rash. He was even more upset by the fact that there was no sign of remorse on Muna's face. She wore a proud look on her face as though she hadn't done anything wrong. Muna realized that Junseo was struggling to control his anger. His eyes had turned red, and his body was heaving angrily. She only saw him this way when he was very upset, but why was he angry when she had given him her virginity last night? He should have a little trust in her so they could find out what happened together. She was about to ask Junseo where he had disappeared and why Minho was in her bed when he said with gritted teeth, "Today, I have realized just how cheap, shameless, and promiscuous you truly are." Did you do this because you knew it would hurt me, or you fucked him because you couldn't keep your hormones in check? Regardless of what your reason was, Muna, I will never forgive you. I will deal with you and make your life so miserable that you will wish you were never born. This is the promise of Junseo. After speaking, Junseo turned around and walked away. Muna furrowed her brows. Junseo, what exactly is going on? She quickly got up from the bed and wanted to leave, but Minho stopped her. She pushed him away and said, I don't understand what Junseo is saying. He needs to properly explain the meaning of his words. Minyu got up and grabbed her just as she got to the door. Let me go, Minyu, she warned angrily, but he said, Wait, Muna, you can't go out like this. At least dress properly. What will people think of you? I don't want anyone to disrespect you. Muna looked at her body and realized that she still had the sheets with the blood stains wrapped around her body. She also realized that Minho was putting on only his boxers and freed her body from his hold. She looked around and saw her clothes on the floor. She quickly picked them up and walked to the bathroom door to open it so she could change inside. Before she opened the door, Minho said, I think Junseo set you up. Muna looked at him angrily and replied, Don't say such nonsense, Minyu. Minho sighed sadly. I am sorry, Muna, but think about it. How did I end up here when I have no memory of even leaving my house, and why was Junseo mad at you? Muna thought about it and said, I think I need to see the manager of this place. The CCTV footage will show how you got into this room and why Junseo is so angry. After speaking, she went into the bathroom and shut the door. Muna quickly got dressed in the bathroom and came out. When she did, she realized that Minho had also put on his clothes. She stared at him with suspicion written all over her face. She didn't know what to believe yet. She knew Minho was a decent and nice guy who would never do anything to hurt her. But the fact that he mysteriously woke up in her bed without a plausible explanation was extremely worrying. She needed to find out the truth for herself because it was difficult to trust him at this point. She opened the door and walked out while Minyu followed right behind her. When she met the manager of the bar, she said, Excuse me, please, last night, my husband, Mr. Kim Junseo, paid for a room here and we spent the night. However, when I woke up this morning, there was someone else in my bed. I vividly remember that my husband Junseo was the one in bed with me last night, but for some reason, everything turned out differently this morning. I just want to clear everything up, and for that, I will need the CCTV footage that covers the path to my room from about 10 p.m. till this morning. Please, I just want to see how Minyu got into my room and why Junseo woke up in a different place. The manager stared at Muna with pity. He already knew everything that happened, but there was nothing he could do. He looked at her and said, I'm so sorry, Mrs. Kim, but your husband Kim Junseo asked that the CCTV footage be erased. Usually it is against our policy, but you know your husband's status in society. He is very influential and very wealthy. With a snap of his fingers, he can close down this place or put us out of business, so we had no choice but to erase the CCTV footage. I didn't get a chance to look at it, so I can't really help you. After speaking, the manager turned and walked away while Muna fell on the ground weakly and began to cry. Minyu bent down and said, I told you, Muna, think about what happened to me. I was just at home when I heard the sound of my doorbell. I asked who it was, and the person said there was a delivery for me. I was surprised because I didn't order anything and I wasn't expecting anyone to send me a parcel. I decided to open the door anyways to see who it was, and then the next thing, I woke up in bed with you this morning. I'm sure this must have been planned by Junseo. Muna, you know that right from time Junseo has been plotting his revenge. Think about it. How did you end up here? Didn't Junseo invite you here? I'm sure he must have planned everything. He invited you here and planned for me to be abducted and placed on the bed beside you. The only reason why he would set you up in this way is that he wants to disgrace you. He wants to use you and treat you like a tramp, and now he has all the proof which he would use as an excuse to do whatever he wants to you. Your life was already miserable to start with. Think about how worse it would be now that Junseo has deceitfully gotten a reason to torture you every day. He is going to ruin your reputation before everyone and tell them how you cheated on him. Of course, he will deny spending the night with you and taking away your innocence because accepting it would absolve you of any blames. Muna, I cannot bear this anymore. I cannot tolerate seeing you go through so much torture and defamation. Please don't do this to yourself anymore. Muna recalled what Junseo said that night when she had baked a cake for him. I merely toyed with you and gave you a little attention, but because you are too easy, you began to dream big and throw yourself at me. Muna, I hate you and I hate your parents, and for as long as I live, I will never forgive all of you for taking away the people I love most from me. She recalled what Junseo had said to her last night before he took away her innocence. I'm in love with you, Muna. I love you so much, and right now, I want nothing more than to be inside you. She also recalled how Junseo had sent her a text to meet him at the bar, but refused to take her calls when she kept calling his number. She became convinced that Junseo had toyed with her and clutched her chest as she wept bitterly. Minyu felt bad at how he was making Muna cry, but there was no going back now. He began to wipe the tears from Muna's eyes and said, Don't cry anymore. Junseo doesn't deserve your tears. This is his ultimate revenge. You kept your virginity as a prized possession for years because you wanted to only give it out in wedlock to the one you love, but Junseo took it away and trampled on it without any mercy. Muna looked up at Minho and cried, What did I ever do wrong to Junseo? I tried my best. I really tried to be a good wife and foster peace between us. I tried my best to be respectful, loving, and caring, so why did Junseo do this to me? I was such a fool. I was a fool to have trusted Junseo and believe in his goodness. I should have known that Junseo had an agenda right from the moment he forced me to marry him. How could I be so foolish, Minyu? What do I do now? I don't know what to do. I don't feel like living anymore. Please do not say such words, Muna, Minho replied. It's not the end of your life and you cannot give up because of someone like that. You do not understand Minyu, Muna cried. Junseo will use this opportunity to cause more pain to my parents. The reason I got married to Junseo in the first place was to spare them his torture, but now I can't do that anymore. Minho shook his head. Listen to me, Muna. I have thought of a plan, a very good one. If you trust me and follow exactly what I say, you will be free from Junseo for the rest of your life, and I can promise you that Junseo will never hurt you or your parents again. Muna wiped the tears from her eyes and asked, What do I have to do, Minyu? Junseo angrily went back home and sat on his bed, replaying the scene of Muna and Minho being naked under the sheets. How dare she? He was going to deal with both of them, but it would be worse for Muna. She had disregarded him and acted contrary to what was in the contract they had signed. He had warned her severally that he would not tolerate being cuckolded. He had even put his relationship with Minji on hold due to that. Going by what Minji told him this morning, he had only slept with Minji last night because he had too much to drink and wasn't in his right mind, but Muna had no excuse. She even had the temerity to look at him proudly when he had caught her red-handed, cheating with her ex. He was going to hit her where it hurt the most, and he was going to begin with her parents. Once again, he would take everything from them without holding back, and as for Muna, he would make her life 10 times more miserable until she would wish for death. He would humiliate her at every given opportunity and demoralize her completely. When he is done with her, she would no longer recognize herself in the mirror. As for today, he would wait for her to come back. She would stand under the sun for the whole day and spend the night outside by the door. That would be the beginning of her misery. As for her parents, he would go after them starting tomorrow. Even if Muna's father died from shock, he would not bat an eyelid or show any mercy. While Junseo was still fuming and plotting, his phone began to ring. He looked at the number. It was unfamiliar, so he hung up without hesitation. He was in no mood to talk to anyone. However, the phone kept ringing until Junseo became irritated. Picking up the call, he yelled, "What the fuck do you want?" The person on the other end of the phone calmly asked, "Am I speaking with Mr. Kim Junseo?" "Yes, this is him," Junseo replied. "What is it?" The person apologized. "I am sorry to inform you, sir, that your wife, Mrs. Kim, has been in an accident. Please come to Seoul National University Hospital as soon as possible." Junseo stared at his phone in shock as the call ended. He got up, picked up his keys, which he had dropped on the floor, and angrily dashed out of his house. As he drove to the hospital, his heart kept beating fast and his mind was all over the place. Why did Muna have to get into an accident now? He was not going to let her off the hook because of this. Regardless of her condition, he was still going to make her miserable. When he arrived at the hospital, he ran to the reception and inquired about Mrs. Kim's ward. He arrived at the ward just as a doctor covered a white cloth over Muna's body and face. He stood for a while in shock and slowly walked over to the bed. He held the white cloth and took it off Muna. He gasped in shock when he saw the state she was in. She lay unconscious on the bed, and one side of her face was covered with blood. There were injuries on her arms and neck, and the white gown she wore had turned red from blood stains. The part of her face which was not covered with blood had turned white. Junseo took his ear closer to her chest, but could not hear the sound of her heartbeats. He held her by the shoulders and shook her body as his eyes turned red. "Get up, Muna. Why are you not breathing? If it's because of what happened last night, then I forgive you. I promise not to punish you, so please, get up." The doctor walked over to Junseo and tapped him comfortingly on the shoulder. "I'm sorry. We tried everything but couldn't save her. She had lost too much of blood before she was brought in, and she had multiple internal injuries." Junseo got up and held the doctor by the collar with both hands as he yelled, "Why didn't you do much better? Why did you let her die? It's all your fault." The doctor struggled to breathe, while a few other doctors and nurses came and rescued him from Junseo's grip. The doctor quickly left the room while some male nurses came and moved Muna to another bed, covered her with the white cloth, and wheeled her away. Junseo fell weakly on the floor and stared at her body as it was being driven away. A tear fell from his eyes as he cried, "This is my fault. This is all my fault, Muna. I was very angry because you cheated on me. I should have dragged you out of that room when I saw you this morning. I shouldn't have left you behind. I never wanted you to die, Muna. What am I supposed to do now that you are gone? What do I do with all this anger and pain in my heart? I know we had our issues, but why did you leave me so soon?" Some of the nurses watched Junseo from a distance as he grieved and felt pity for him. Junseo's phone began to ring from inside his pocket. He took it out intending to end the call, but was surprised to see that it was from his uncle. His uncle never called him unless it was extremely important, and he was receiving treatment in the hospital. Junseo wiped his eyes and answered the call. His uncle's frail voice urged him, "Please, come and see me now, Junseo. It's extremely important." "I am coming right away," Junseo replied before getting up from the floor. He slowly walked out of the hospital, got into his car, and drove straight to the hospital where his uncle was admitted to. When he got to his uncle's hospital room, Junseo went to his bedside, sat beside him, and held his hands. "I'm so sorry that I haven't come to see you in a while." His uncle got up with difficulty and sighed sadly. "I saw the news today about the accident that Muna got into. I know you married her to torture her, and after seeing her so badly bruised, I could not help feeling guilty. This is why I called you." "It's not your fault, Uncle," Junseo comforted. "Worry about your health only and I'll take care of everything else." "You don't understand," his uncle replied. "I should have told you the truth about what happened to your parents. I'm really sorry that I waited until it was too late." Junseo stared at his uncle in shock. "What are you trying to say? Didn't Muna's parents wipe out my entire family?" His uncle stared at him sadly. "I am very sorry, Junseo, but Muna's parents didn't have a hand in the death of your family." Junseo got up from the bed and angrily held his uncle by his shoulder. "What do you mean by that, Uncle? If it wasn't Muna's parents, then who killed them? And why did you make me believe all these years that my family was killed by the Jacksons?" Junseo's uncle closed his eyes and began to explain. "So many years ago, your father and I were both in love with your mum. I had already made a lot of money, but your father was still broke. Of course, I didn't help him in any way since we were both after the same woman. In the end, your mother picked your father over me. She fell for him and wouldn't look at me no matter what I did. Your mother's parents, though, didn't want her to marry your father because he was broke. Mrs. Jackson was your mother's best friend. She was already married to Mr. Jackson, and they had a lot of money. I was confident that I would get your mother in the end. Because of how broke my brother was, however, Mrs. Jackson convinced her husband, and they gave your father money to start up his business. He was able to stand on his feet and finally got married to your mom. I hated the Jacksons so much because I believed that if it wasn't for their intervention, I would have married your mom instead of my brother. I loved your mother so much that I could never look at another woman, which is why I never got married. Despite everything, I loved you and your late sister because you were the children of the woman I loved. When your mother was heavily pregnant with her third child, she went to the Jacksons to visit them. While climbing their flight of stairs, she slipped and began to fall. As she screamed, Michael, the late son of the Jacksons, ran out of his room and tried to save her, but he couldn't. She died before she was rushed to the hospital. One of the servants in the Jacksons' household was someone I planted. I had planned to use him in ruining their business and getting my revenge. He called me and told me what had happened. I was completely devastated, but I refused to let go of the opportunity. I asked the servant to secretly meet your father in the hospital and tell him that Michael had pushed your mother off the stairs. Your father was so grief-stricken when he heard that. Without thinking of his actions clearly, he put your younger sister in his car and drove to the house of the Jacksons. He kidnapped Michael with a knife, threw him into the car with your sister, and drove off. Mr. and Mrs. Jackson quickly got into their car and chased after him so they could free their son from his clutches. Because your father kept looking behind him, he didn't see the trailer on time and got into a terrible accident. That wasn't the result I had hoped for. After all, your father was my brother. The news caused me more heartache, but I decided to put all the blame on the Jacksons. None of these would have happened if they had not interfered in your mother's life. Their son Michael died in the accident, and so did your father and sister. I changed the story and lied to you because I felt that the Jacksons still needed to be punished. I took care of you as my own, but made you grow up hating the Jacksons so much. For some time now, I have regretted everything I did. I realized that everything that happened was my fault, and I wanted to tell you the truth, especially since you were married to Muna. I really wanted to tell you everything, but I didn't know how. I didn't know where to start, not until I saw the news about Muna's death. I wish I could turn back the hands of time, Juncio. I don't have much time to live, but the guilt in my heart is so unbearable. Please forgive me. Juncio stared at his uncle in shock as tears streamed down his face. He let go of his shoulder without saying a word and slowly walked out of the hospital. His mind began to recollect conversations he had with Muna. All the times she tried to tell him the truth about what happened in the past, but he wouldn't believe her. How could he have known that his uncle lied to him all these years? He trusted his uncle implicitly because he had taken care of him and loved him like a son. He wiped his eyes and got into his car. He needed to ask for Muna's forgiveness. There was no way he could live his life without it. He quickly drove back to the hospital, but was informed that Muna's parents had retrieved her body and taken it for cremation according to their custom. He quickly got into his car and began driving to Muna's father's house. On his way, he kept remembering how badly he had treated them in the past. He had disrespected Muna's father so many times and even caused him to suffer a stroke. "How could you do this to me, uncle?" he cried. He felt a lot of pain in his heart and parked his car by the roadside. He came out of the car and screamed at the top of his voice. Passers-by stared at him in surprise, but he was so consumed by his pain. "Why did you destroy my life, uncle? If it weren't for you, I would have treated Muna better and she would have still been alive. I will never forgive you." After kneeling on the ground helplessly and screaming in agony for a while, Juncio got back into his car and drove to Muna's father's house. He parked his car by the entrance, got into the compound, and knocked on the door, but there was no response. He realized the door wasn't locked and pushed it open, only to see Muna's parents and a few others which he presumed to be family members weeping. They all stared at him as he entered the house, and the anger on Muna's mother's face was unmistakable. Juncio immediately went on his knees to plead for forgiveness. However, Muna's mother yelled, "Get out of my house before I pour hot water on you." Despite Muna's mother's warning, Juncio refused to leave. He kept kneeling on the floor and said, "Please, just let me say goodbye to Muna. I am very sorry, Mrs. Jackson. I was misinformed by someone I trusted completely. Please forgive me. Let me see Muna's body just once." Muna's mother got up from her seat and charged at Juncio, pushing him and almost falling in the process. She shouted once again with tears in her eyes, "Get out of my house. What is the point of being sorry now? You've finally killed my daughter, my only child. No matter how sorry you are, you can never bring her back to life, so just leave. Junseo did not want to leave, but Muna's mother kept pushing him, and he realized that she was going to injure herself if he remained. So he got up and left the house. As Junseo opened the door and left, Muna secretly stared at him through the window. She could not understand the things Junseo had said to her mom. He seemed so sad, yet he had shown so much hatred for her in the morning. Was Junseo putting on an act, or was he really sorry? What did he mean when he said he had heard the whole truth? He had deliberately set her up, so this must all be part of his plan to hurt her family. It was better this way. As long as he thought she was dead, everyone would be safe. At least now, she could start afresh. Junseo went back to his house and lay lifelessly on the couch. He thought about his moments with Muna. He recalled all the times he called her names, all the times he shoved her, all the times she tried to be nice to him, and all the times she would smile at him even when he was deliberately causing her pain. He closed his eyes and blamed himself. Everything was his fault. Even at the hotel, it must have been his fault. If he did not keep pushing Muna away, she wouldn't have run back to Minyu. He neglected her when she needed love, which was why she turned to Minyu, who was ready to welcome her with open arms. He kept blaming himself and wishing he could turn back the hands of time. When he remembered all the lies his uncle told him, he got up, screamed, and began to destroy the things in his house. In a few minutes, he had completely trashed the house and injured himself in the process, but the pain he felt from his bleeding finger was nothing compared to the pain in his heart. He sat on the floor and stayed in the same position for a long time until he heard a knock on his door. When he opened the door and saw Minji, he asked angrily, "What do you want?" Seeing the state Junseo was in, and the way his eyes were red, Minji asked, "Have you been crying? I heard about what happened to Muna and I'm really sorry. I know you must be going through a lot right now because no matter what, you never wanted her to die, which is why I've come to be here for you. I want to be beside you in this difficult time of yours." "I do not need you, Minji," Junseo replied. "Please leave." "Do not shut me out, Junseo," Minji begged. "Please, Junseo, I need you and I know you need me as well." "For crying out loud, stop this, Minji," Junseo yelled. He softened his expression when Minji's eyes began to brim with tears. "Listen, I know that something happened last night between us which should not have happened. I need you to understand that I was not in my right state of mind, and I'm very sorry. No matter what happens, you and I are never getting back together. It is over. Muna is the only woman I have ever loved, and that will never change. There is no place for you in my heart, so please go and don't ever come to my house again." Minji opened her eyes wide as her tears fell without control. "How can you do this to me, Junseo? You keep saying Muna is the only one you love even after she cheated on you. Does it not matter that you caught her in bed with her boyfriend, Minyu?" Junseo angrily held Minji's neck and pressed it hard. "This is the last time I am warning you, Minji. Don't ever utter Muna's name again and get out." He pushed her out and locked the door while Minji stood outside and wept. All her plotting would have been successful if Muna was still alive. Why did she choose to die now? When she had wanted her to die, she refused, so why now? Even in death, Muna still took her man away from her. She decided to leave for the time being and give Junseo time to get over Muna. There was no way he could spend the rest of his life without a woman, and she was going to stay close until he was ready to move on. After Minji left, Junseo stared at Muna's room and decided to enter inside. He had not been in there since it became Muna's. He hoped that staying there would make him feel closer to her. When he entered the room, the first thing that caught his attention was a big parcel on her bed. He wondered what was inside and opened it. He noticed they were designer shirts and they looked like the type he used. There were briefs as well, and the moment he saw them, he recalled their time on the island. The designs were all the same. Could Muna have gotten all these for him? He was still wondering about this when he noticed a folded piece of paper. On the back, he saw the text, "From little Muna, your loving wife." He opened it and realized that Muna had written a letter to him. The letter read, "My beloved Junseo, I have resorted to writing you a letter because I don't know how else to get my message across to you. I don't know who told you that my parents took your family from you, but that person has lied to you. My brother was in the same car as your father and sister, when the accident happened, so how could it be possible that they would kill their own son? Please carefully look into this and make your findings. I'm sure you will discover the truth. I miss the Juncio I found on the island, and I wish things could be different between us. I am so lonely without you, and it breaks my heart each time you push me away. I want us to be a united family, a loving couple who can trust and support each other. Maybe I am asking for too much, but I can't help it. I am so much in love with you. I hope that, when you read this letter, you will understand my feelings for you and give us a chance. Enclosed herewith is a token of my affection for you, with love from Muna. Juncio lay weakly on the bed and clutched the letter tightly as he cried out once again. My little Muna, I was so foolish. I love you too, baby. Please come back to me. I wish I could get another chance, just one more chance, and I promise to give you the world and everything else you want. Juncio lay face down on the bed and took in Muna's fragrance. He remained on the bed for a long time with his eyes closed until he drifted off to sleep.
Thanks for watching. Please subscribe to the channel, like, share, and comment below.